Hello, anybody who happened to stumble across this. Welcome to the first episode of Backlog Crew, the show where we play games in our backlog together and talk about them. I'm Kurt, that's John, and today we're going to be talking about Limbo, at least the first 20 chapters of Limbo. Just some background information. Limbo was a game released by a studio called Playdead in 2010. They're perhaps more famous for their work on a game called Inside, and we haven't played either of them. So here we go. John, just to start off, what do you think? What's your first thing you want to say about the game?
Okay, well, I got to say about Limbo that I thought it was just a beautifully crafted, dark, eerie, atmospheric side scroller. And I'm just going to go off of Playdead's description on this. Um, wasn't very much to go on here, but their description of the game was uncertain of his sister's fate, a boy enters Limbo. And so that right there just told me that I had no idea what was going to be happening, but it did sound like a very fun adventure to get into.
I'm glad. I'm glad that that's in the description because when I was looking up the information about the studio and the date and whatnot, I was reading like an article about it, and I read a sentence too far in my mind, and it said he was looking for his sister, which was something that I didn't know, and I was just like, oh man, I just got like I don't know
Spoilers.
because the game just starts. The game doesn't
Mhm.
set you up on this quest. You just wake up in a field and you start going right. Speaking of, did you start going right or did you go left first?
I went right first.
I went
Did I already
left.
miss something?
I went left first, and I found a shiny thing. No idea what it was, but I got a trophy for it. So anyway, but yeah, they just sit you down and you're supposed to go right, and you don't know anything about it. So I was really like, I was gonna have this like conversation ready, be like, where are we going? What are we doing? But I'm glad that that wasn't something that was spoiled, and that was just the premise of the game that everybody should know going in.
Yeah, that was definitely a nice little tidbit of information. So we know that he's looking to figure out the fate of his sister, but we don't know exactly anything about Limbo, which is where he's entering. And so, yeah, like you had mentioned, just the start of the story, you start in the middle of the woods. You have no idea what's going on. And then, seemingly out of the ground, you see these two eyes just open up and this boy just stand up.
Mm-hmm.
You just start controlling him. That's your character. This is your quest. Where you're going, who knows?
Yeah, let's. In my mind, I guess I thought we would talk about like gameplay and stuff first, but we're already on stories. Let's talk about that for a second. Um, so Limbo, in the real world, as we understand limbo as a concept, it's like you die and then you're in limbo until you decide where you're going to go after limbo, either heaven or hell traditionally. Is
Mhm.
that what's happening here? Is this kid did he is he dead? Is he alive and he entered limbo to try to save someone who had died? Like, is that what we're supposed to gather? Or is it like not literally limbo?
Mhm. Well, I sure hope that this boy hasn't died to get into limbo, because I haven't known this child. Let's say I played for 1.6 hours, but
Mm.
I already have a strong attachment to this main character. Everything that he does, I just feel compassion for, because I know his backstory. He's wanting to go find his sister, and that's definitely something I could get behind. Wanting to find your family and make sure that they're okay. So I hope that he is alive, but based on how dark and eerie this game is, you can never know what direction coming forward is what's going to happen.
Well, he have you noticed that you said earlier his eyes glow?
Hmm.
None of the other humans' eyes glow.
Well, that is a point that I did not catch
I
in
was gonna
this.
I was gonna ask like why that is, but maybe that's what maybe he's not dead. Everybody else is, and that's why his eyes glow. Or
Yeah,
maybe
and that might be why they're so aggressive toward him throughout the entire adventure there, because everything is trying to stop him on his quest. I thought maybe you could go up to any of these other characters you see in this, but then they try to brutally murder the boy, and it just made me sad for him.
yeah, because you're not supposed to be there, I guess. Speaking brutally murdered is absolutely correct. The first time I stepped on a bear trap, oh my gosh, I lost my mind. It's so gory.
Is that the first time you died was on a bear trap, perchance?
It wasn't the first time I died, but like the first time I died, there's like a slope that you're supposed to slide down, and I like jumped from the top of it, And so I just kind of landed and he just kind of fell over and I was like, oh, okay. But and then I might have drowned or just like fallen down like a bottomless, I don't know. But that's the first time where it was like, oh, we're gonna dismember you because you misstepped. Like literally his head and arms just came off and I was not prepared for that to happen.
Right, I would definitely agree with that. And actually, the first time that I had the misfortune of dying with the character was actually in a section I would call a tutorial section here,
Mhm.
because the main goal of that area was you pulled this boat out of the water and then you were to climb a rope, jump to another rope, and then climb a cliff. Well, I was trying to overthink this, and I thought you needed to swing the rope back and forth in order to climb up that cliff to get to the top. However, after dying about 5 times and having to live through that, um, I figured out that you could just straight up just climb the rope all the way to the top, and you'd be able to get to the top of that cliff. So I was very surprised that I had to die that much to figure out the jumping mechanic and the climbing mechanic.
Dude, it's okay. I died in a ton of dumb ways. And I guess we should say what kind of game this is. This is like I would call it a puzzle platformer. Is that how you would define it?
I would definitely say this is a puzzle platformer. And then one of the things that makes this game stand out is there are no lives at all. You just keep repeating and, perpetually until you solve the puzzles. So
The way things should be. I'm gonna look right into the camera. The way things should be for always. I'm glad games now are doing that. Like Mario Odyssey doesn't have lives. First three Mario not to do that. Cyber Shadow just came out by the Shovel Knight developers, and it doesn't have lives.
mhm.
Um, but this game came out 11 years ago. This game was way ahead of the curve, and it's I don't know. It's just really cool that maybe it didn't start setting that in motion, but I'm glad it was part of the movement and that it's becoming more standardized, if nothing else.
Right. When you put that out there, how long ago this game was released? Whenever I read the date, I was just like, oh, so that was a few years ago. No, that was 11 years ago.
Yeah, we're old. It's okay. This came out when I was a freshman, eighth grader. This came out when I was in middle school.
Yeah, same. So that's very, very funny to think about. So
Let's see what else. Um, so I found the very like simple mechanics of like the walking is like a good speed. I don't know. That sounds dumb to say. The jumping I was kind of iffy about at first, just because it's very horizontal jumping. It's not very vertical. Like there's almost no instances where you jump up to an area. It's usually like step by step climbing. Um, but it really does feel good and it's very consistent. So you always know where you're going to land. And then something that's unreasonably satisfying to me is when I make a long horizontal jump and I don't know if I'm going to make it. And he just like barely grabs onto the corner and
right.
just climbs up. And he does it every single time. Every time I'm like, I'm not going to make it. And he just like clings and like pulls up. But I'm still constantly like, oh no, every single time I make a jump. It's great.
Yeah, that was definitely something I wrote down going through the game. I wrote down it was very simplistic when it comes to the controls, considering you only have 5 buttons to choose from here. You've got your 4 movement directions, then you've got your action button. So it seems very simple, but it's also very fun to master. As previously mentioned, that tutorial section gave me a little trouble. And then I would say that I had to get used to the fact of climbing the ropes and being aware of, I would hold the up button to climb the ropes, but then if I click left or right, your character would automatically jump. And I did not. It took me a little while to understand that because I kept jumping when I shouldn't, and it was causing a little more deaths than I had anticipated. So
I died in a bunch of dumb ways, but one that stands out is, do you remember the area where there's I don't even remember the solution to the puzzle, but there's like a small pond and there's like a broken crate.
mhm,
So I think what I remember was there's like a crate further back that you're supposed to like pull over and make like a bridge or something like that.
mhm,
But instead, I was bound and determined that this one crate was like my salvation and that I had to make it work. So I kept like pushing it out as far as I could without drowning and then trying to make it and never being able to make it either to the crate or from the crate to the other side. And then at one point I tried to make the crate like roll, like turn sides in the
mhm.
water, and then I just drowned several times trying that. So I don't know. It's very simple in concept, and maybe I'm just dumb, but I feel like the puzzles are like they're not frustratingly difficult, but they're complicated enough to like make you think, which is very satisfying.
Right. That's definitely something that I was considering in that. I kept trying to overthink these puzzles, and sometimes the most simplistic answer was right there in front of me, but it was just like, yep, that's too simple. That could not be it. And yet, that's definitely the way I should have done it the first time, because it would have made my life a lot easier. So,
Were there any standout sequences for you?
well, I would say the instance where you are having to make it past these two giant let's see, things that are going to squash your character. And
Mm-hmm.
then on one of them, you have to step on the center. And
Yeah.
then the second one, you don't step on the center. And then you jump over that little cliff there. And then standing in front of you are three humans that just start shooting at you. And it just kind of, saddened me a little bit to know that, like we had mentioned before, everything in this game was out to get this kid.
Were
And
they? What were they shooting you with? Were they guns or were they like blow darts?
they were blow darts, and
Okay.
I believe they were poisons because whenever you jump over that last cliff before they arrive, you see there's a body already there with a few darts in it. And I
Mm,
was just assuming they were poison. I don't
makes
think I
sense.
actually got taken out by any darts,
Same.
but a definite misstep or two caused me to have to do that section a few times.
Dude, that was very have you ever heard of the game I Want to Be the Guy?
I have not.
I don't I don't know. I think it's just like a flash game of some sort that somebody made, but
Mhm.
it's very much the same as those two things that would squish you. Where the first one you have to jump on this little platform in the middle, and if you step outside of that little platform, then you'll get crushed. But on the
Mhm.
second one, if you step on that little platform, you get crushed. So you have to make sure you don't touch it. That
Mhm.
game was very like, oh, okay, learn to do this thing correctly, and then if you try it again, you'll die instantly. And I don't know. I guess that could be unfair, but since there's no lives, it's just humorous, and then it makes you remember.
Right. And then I would say another part that stood out to me was whenever that giant spider's blocking your path, and your main goal as the character was to use one of the bear traps on a tree to take out the spider's legs to make it run away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured out really quickly how to get that out of the tree. And so I used the character and I pulled the trap right under where the legs were trying to attack me before, and so my goal was to stand close to the spider to get the legs to attract or to attract the attention of the legs to attack me. And I took out one of the legs and then I jumped back over there to get the attention of the spider's legs again. And then
Uh-huh.
out of nowhere, that fourth leg just shoots out of the spider because you're too close to it.
Oh,
And it
nice.
it it legitimately scared me because I had done that once or twice and I had misstepped on the bear trap a few times
Yeah.
or some other, but I did not have a fourth leg show up because I was too close to the spider. And so
Yeah.
that part definitely just hit me by surprise. And I was thinking, well, I guess I'm going to have to find a different way to do this.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't have that one happen. That's funny. On the third leg, the timing on the third leg is different. And that
mhm.
got me the first time because I was like, wait, dodge, got him, wait, dodge, got him, wait, and then he just stabs me immediately. Um, I want to talk about this spider.
Go ahead.
What did this spider do to deserve some kid showing up with bear traps and cutting off 3 of his feet?
Well, I would say that this spider did get in the way of this child's goal and of his mission. And I mean, I don't know if you tried this, but if you try to walk just straight through the spider, those legs start looking for you,
Mm.
but you can't get through there. So he's definitely blocking the path. And I'm imagining if you wait there long enough, he's not going to go away. So, I mean, ultimately,
I get that.
ultimately, he had no choice.
I get that mechanically he had
Right.
no choice, but morally, I think we're the bad guy. As far as the spider is concerned, and because then the spider chases you the rest of the level or the rest
Um,
of the this part of the game, and I don't blame him.
yeah.
If I had if I had 8 legs and 8 feet, and then I was suddenly reduced to 5 because somebody wanted to get past where I was standing, I would be very upset.
All right. So how would you feel after you've tried to get your revenge and then you ultimately lose more legs while you're trying to get your revenge? Would you quit at that point
It
or would you
was
keep going?
it was so sad. I mean, I think by the time he was reduced to so few legs that he could move, like he couldn't move anymore. And then we rip off his last leg like manually by hand, and then we push him into a spike pit to make a platform for us.
Hmm.
That's terrifying. The scariest thing that's happened in this game so far is not any of the things that have happened to the boy, but it's what we did to that spider. He did.
Yes, and I would like to point out the fact that whenever I pulled that last leg off, it took me about a minute or two to realize I was supposed to pull it off. I actually went and jumped behind the spider,
Same.
thinking I was supposed to do something with it, but in
Hmm.
fact I had to pull the leg off. But after I pulled that leg off, and I was like, "This is the world I'm living in. I have to roll this spider." And I was worried it was going to bite me, even though there was no mechanic of that spider biting you the entire game.
Oh, were you pulling it from the front? Were you dragging it?
Well, I was pushing it, and then it kept
Uh huh.
rolling, and I was like, "Oh, here
Oh
comes the
yeah.
face," or
Yeah, I forgot
where
it
I
rolled.
thought where I thought the face would be,
Hmm.
and it never bit me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess he's given up." Okay, so
The poor thing. It's so sad. um, Another moment that stands out to me. Do you remember the part where you're running along and then there's like I think it's the first time you see other people and there's two of
hmm
them
hmm
and they run up a hill and one of them gets on a little perch and drops like a flaming tire on you. You know that part?
yeah,
So my mind immediately was just like Donkey Kong.
hmm yeah, definitely. I thought
Donkey
of
Kong.
Donkey Kong in that.
And it
I
started it's oh go ahead.
I was gonna say I did have the reflexes to run back and dodge that, but it was very close.
I did not. I was like, oh Donkey Kong, I got this. And then I ran up and made it like 1/3 of the way up the size of the tire and just immediately got plowed through. So don't play too many video games or you'll be bad at video games, I guess. I guess that's the moral of that story.
Like we mentioned before, overthinking the puzzle. Don't jump over it, just run away.
Um, what's up with these headworms?
Okay, so those headworms, the last headworm that you get actually caused my most confusion.
Mm-hmm.
That was the puzzle I got stuck on. The area that looks like an H, which is after you complete that puzzle, is the official halfway point. That's the 20th puzzle. And I spent a long time trying to figure out that puzzle because I didn't think like I had just mentioned actually, the fact that just jump back to where you had came from,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had to wait and do it the next day to get a fresh perspective on it. And I was like, well, let's just try jumping back because this character doesn't know how to swim, and that
Which is weird.
ultimately, yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't know how to swim either, so
Oh, really?
I can relate to this character. Yes.
I don't know if I can swim. I can float in a general direction, but I don't know
Yep.
about swim. So this is the part with like the rising tides. That's what you're talking about with the headworm there.
Exactly. Yeah, to get that
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, so that was weird, but it's a really cool mechanic that the headworm, like, you can't avoid it, but it jumps in and it doesn't take full control, but it makes you go in one direction without stopping. And the only way to turn around is to jump into some light, or like rays of light. And so, why do the headworms? Well, first of all, what do we think the headworms are? If this is literally limbo, like, what's that about? Is it just
Well,
something to make it more miserable?
I would say if this is Limbo,
Mm-hmm.
they're not, for the reason they make you turn directions, it probably hurts the worm, and so its instinct is to probably go the opposite direction.
Right, that
So
makes sense.
I would say the reason those worms are there is probably a control aspect. They're trying to get you to, go the certain way. So
Oh, so you think that's how they like keep everybody like ordered and filed? Just
I
make
would
them
say that
go
would
this way?
mhm. uh, kind of the idea I had about it. But I
Yeah.
did not catch on the first puzzle the fact that the light was making me change directions.
Hmm.
Because it's a darker area, and the light that shined through wasn't actually as bright as the light in the second area where you learn how to use the worm even better.
Gotcha.
And so I thought maybe after a certain amount of time, you swap directions.
Yeah.
And so I spent a long time on those worm puzzles because I would stand behind a crate, and the crates occasionally get stuck on objects because they're only allowed to go in these certain areas so you can move through the puzzles. And I thought if I just left my character pushing on the box, eventually he would swap directions and let
Hmm.
me go work on the puzzle again. But when you sit there for about a minute and a half and he doesn't change directions, you have to think about maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. And so more
Everyone
trial
else,
and error.
everything else is wrong. It's not you, John.
So,
That's really a good testament to the game's design, in my opinion, because it's very much like we said earlier, it just drops you in and then you start going, and then you just sort of learn as you go. There's never a text box that pops up. It's like, hey, press this button to do this. There's never an NPC that pulls you aside and tells you what you should be doing. And I really appreciate that because recently I started playing Final Fantasy 15 for the first time. And literally before the introductory cutscene, there's about 30 minutes of tutorials where it's literally you're just standing in like a tutorial room, and it's like, here's how we do combat, press this button, all right, this will do a special, and then you finish it. It's like, great, now let's learn about magic. And it's like, okay, I get it that Final Fantasy 15 is vastly more complicated, at least from a systems perspective, than Limbo is. But I mean, you got to appreciate just the simplicity of the game design of just dropping you in, and then the levels and the puzzles being designed in such a way that if you try it enough, you'll just eventually get it without it becoming frustrating and without anyone having to hold your hand and say, all right, here's what you should do.
right, I definitely agree with that. Just the fact that you don't need to get confused in a situation, just look up how to do some mechanic in this game. Like we mentioned, there's 5 buttons just to choose from. So, and then when you are affected by the worm, there's only really 2 or 3 buttons that you can really use on
Like,
in
just
that
jump.
case.
Yeah,
Yeah,
jump and climb. That's all you got.
jump, slow your run, and then run faster. So that's about it.
Wait.
So,
Oh yeah, I remember. If you press left and right, you like change the speed based on the worm.
because I kept trying
Um,
to slow it down in hopes that maybe something would happen to save my character from his inevitable fall to the water, but that was not the case. So,
I only have one more thing in my notes that I wanted to bring up specifically, but it's kind of like a bigger, like adjacent subject. So, do you have anything else that you want to
mhm.
say specifically, like any moments?
Well, let's say I don't really have any moments, but just the whole fact of the game here. What I had wrote down, just I call the character Boy because he's never given a name, so I call him Boy. I know I'm
I
going
think, I
God
think
of
it's,
War here.
I think it's Atreus. That's who you're referring to.
Yeah, so Boy is a character, like I said before, I immediately felt compassion for. Every single time I began a puzzle or walked through a new area, I would get nervous because I
Mm,
didn't want anything to happen to Boy. Progressing through the game, however, the inevitable occurs. You misstep or you step on a trap. You don't jump far enough. Luckily, he catches those ledges pretty often, but inevitably you do have to watch the ending of Boy. So when this time happens, my heart break, my heart would just break just a tad bit because I think it's psychological. You're in this dangerous landscape, and you don't want anything to happen to him. You want him to get to the end of his goal. So, fighting off just the very large opponent like the spider, or fighting the other children along the way, just the feelings of sorrow and sadness, and even the dread of what's to come, definitely hit home and made this a very real experience, because you want the best for your character. You want them to get through their journey. And, sometimes that just doesn't happen. But just the psychological aspect of that adventure was definitely very, very fun so far, halfway through the campaign here.
so maybe I'm a terrible person, but I'm gonna blame it on the fact that I didn't know that this was a boy on a journey to save his sister,
Hmm.
because one of the pitfalls of, I guess, limited storytelling is I just
Ambiguity.
it's ambiguous. I didn't know anything about this character, so obviously, like I sort of like flinch whenever he gets split into 5 pieces when he steps on a bear trap, which is impressive of a bear trap, but that's not my point. Um, I don't know. Anytime he would just die, I'd be like, oh, okay, I need to watch out for that next time. Maybe I'm heartless. I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm the problem. But yeah, but I definitely agree with like the psychological aspect of it, just based on the the visual style, it's all black and white. It's very like grayscale. And then the audio design, there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no music, right?
Right. It's just ominous. I would say ominous sound. And I would say also the best way to play this game is with, like a set of noise canceling headphones like we're
Hmm.
wearing right now. Just because of that ominous sounds and background is and lack of any talking, it just adds to the eeriness of the whole adventure. I mean, right off the bat, you start in the middle of the woods. I mean, he just wakes up in the middle of the woods. I mean, if that's not ominous right there, I don't know what is.
Maybe that's my problem because I'm not fancy and these aren't noise canceling headphones. And I wasn't using them even. I was playing on my
Mhm.
PS4 on my TV, and so I was just listening through the speakers. So maybe that was part of it. I wasn't like brought
Mhm.
in, you know.
All
I
right.
don't
Well,
know.
I played on a PC with this
Hmm.
headset, and then I also play with the very high volume. I don't know if you've probably heard it. I have a pet bird in here, so he can be loud. So I kind of like to drown out that bird, and then I live in an apartment, so I have other. So I don't like to hear any of that when I'm playing. I like to
Hmm.
focus in on the game. So every time something major would happen, or like there was a misclick, and I didn't know what was going to happen, I'd jump a little bit whenever because the traps and everything are so loud whenever they affect your character,
Hmm.
and so that definitely added to the psychological and the just making it more of a mysterious adventure for me.
Yeah, I should try playing the second half with headphones in.
Yeah, you may be surprised at the difference it can make.
We'll see. So, last thing I want to say, or I want to ask you a question:
Mhm.
is this a horror game?
I would say this is more of a mystery game with horror elements. I
Mm,
would say its intent is not to scare you throughout the entire thing. The main intent of the horror game would be, that. So I would say this is more of a mystery and trying to understand what's going on and to help your character to the end. So I would say it's even got an adventure element to it,
mm.
but I wouldn't call it exactly a horror game.
Interesting. I think the discussion of horror as a genre versus horror as a like thematic centerpiece is interesting because one of my favorite games is Bloodborne from Soft,
Hmm.
and I consider that a horror game. I
Hmm.
think that it is terrifying whenever a blood werewolf is charging at you and you're about to die. But some people are like, no, it's like action adventure and it's just horror elements, but it's not a horror game. Which I don't know. I definitely think that's a horror game. I don't know about this one. I think I'm kind of more in your camp because it's very dark. It's very spooky,
Hmm.
but I don't know if it ever gets to the extent of horror or horrific or anything like that. It's still very much just sort of a charming platformer that's just a little on the dark side.
Hmm.
So
I
I don't know.
definitely agree with that.
Would you call Bloodborne a horror game?
I have not actually played Bloodborne, but I've played a lot of the
Oh,
Dark Souls series. So I would say, based on the scope of those games, I would kind of say that would be on the side of a horror game. Yeah,
are you implying that Dark Souls is a horror game? Because that's a hot take that I'm here to talk about.
I'm gonna stick with Limbo for now.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I would say this game just would steer clear of calling it horror and more of a suspense and mystery.
Yeah, and if anybody happens to find this video somehow, it's not scary. I don't think anyone over the age of 10 or even like 7 or 8 would find this scary. So don't worry about that if you want to try to jump in. Um, John, is there anything you wanted to say before wrapping up?
I definitely agree with that. You're not gonna have any problems with this game being overly scary for you,
Maybe look
because
out
you
for
can.
gore. If you have a
Yeah.
thing with like gore and like kids being in danger specifically,
Hmm.
it's still not graphic, but it's there. So just heads up. Sorry,
Hmm.
go ahead.
No, that covers it perfectly. I agree.
Okay, so consensus of the first half is it's gory. No, no, it's really charming, and I'm really excited to see what happens next. We just finished at a big hotel sign, and so I am hoping slash theorizing that maybe there's going to be some people at this hotel, and maybe, just maybe, they're not going to want to kill me immediately. I probably have my hopes too high based on this game so far, but maybe they won't kill me. I don't know. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm expecting I'm expecting to be a lot of people, but none of them are going to be overly kind to our poor character.
We'll see.
Um,
Maybe it'll turn into like just like Animal Crossing in the last half, like Animal Crossing but in black and white, and it'll just be super nice.
I would say that's wishful thinking for our character, but I do hope the best for our character because, like I've mentioned a few times, I do hope the best for him. I do hope he's able to find his sister,
Mhm.
but at the end of this path, you just never know what this game is going to throw at you. So I'm definitely excited to be finishing up the game to determine just what exactly happens for our character.
Yeah, I gotta wonder what the catalyst is gonna be, because on like the box and the icon for the game, it's the spider. But we killed the spider, so that's not gonna be the final boss, probably. Who knows? So I'm very interested in what the final like thing that we have to overcome is gonna end up being. But yeah,
Uh, Here we go. It's going to be the spider's brother that shows up to figure out what happened to his sister.
and he has 9 legs, so it's extra scary. It's more legs
Exactly.
to cut
So
off.
he's going to be mad because something happened to his sister. So we're going to get the other half of the story here.
Oof. That would be that would be unironically compelling, actually, now that I think about the depth of the story you just laid out there. Is there anything else
Yeah.
you wanted to say?
I think that covers all the topics that I had, but overall, I'd say it's a very wonderful game and
Mhm.
definitely worth your time if you haven't picked it up at this point.
Yeah, it definitely like holds up to its reputation. So definitely check it out if you're interested. If you happen to find this before part 2 comes out, well, we're going to play till the end of the game, and then you can join us and listen in for part 2. But thank you so much for watching the first episode of Backlog Crew, and we'll see you later.